year 2022, we are going to be asking the question as to whether it is best to return to family homes when couples are faced with crisis. Should they go back to their homes of their parents, be they paternal or maternal? Is it the best way to go? Should you go to your in-laws or to your parents? We are also going to be looking at this question, the puzzle of the white wedding. So many things are being said about the white wedding. Is it a key factor to determine a successful marriage? Should we at all spend so much money for the celebration of a white wedding? We are going to be discussing this evening with our panelists who are in the house already for this very first edition of the program for the year 2022. We are in the company of Apostle Ambe Valentine Gwa. He is a permanent consultant. Good evening and welcome. Happy New Year to you, Apostle, once again.
Happy New Year, Mr. Leo. Happy New Year, Cameroonians, and welcome to Prime Hour today. It's a very fresh Tuesday evening, and we are here to discuss marital issues again. This is the first program for the year 2022. Stay tuned to your screens as we bring you very vital information.
Also available for this edition of the program with us this evening is Apostle Alfred, a singer.
I want to say hi to all our viewers. It's an honor, and we are glad that the new year is starting, and we are here again, and we believe it's going to be awesome.
No, God, you should have called me too now. And bless me.
Anyway.
Amen. Yeah. We also are going to be having the participation of Mrs. Sanji Yvette from Bamenda, Northwest Regional Capital. She is an expert in the domain of she is a counselor, an expert also on issues of relationship and marriage. We are starting with you, Apostle Ambe, Divine Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa. We're talking about in times of crisis. We face crisis now.
Of course.
Many of us. In times of crisis, is the family home not just the best fallback position?
Of course, Mr. Leo. The African society is a society that children don't leave their houses.
Okay. The
culture of leaving the house is a European mindset, that at the age of 18 you should start thinking of being independent. But that cultural background from the African society, we are called to stay with family, to the extent that if a woman gets married, the mother will still always want the girl to come back home. Mm-hmm. If the man gets married, the mother will equally want the man to come back home. And then in moments where things are in order, people go back home. Then what of when things get tough and difficult? When things get complicated? I think from the African cultural perspective, it is but certain that when things become very complicated and difficult, it is time for you to get back to your family and then gather your momentum. These things will be addressed in two different forms. First, the approach of if somebody happens to be a family head, a family successor, you are not just a father in your house, in the nuclear family, you are a father in the extended family. People look up to you for guidance and direction. So you are playing double role as an individual. You will always be needed in the extended family compound, and you will be needed in your own nuclear house, the nuclear family. So if, say, somebody going back home when things are difficult, I don't even think that it is when things are difficult somebody has to go back home. Because sometimes your presence back home there is needed. Women don't easily let go their sons. The same way fathers don't let go their sons. So sometimes they will ask you to come back home, and sometimes you will go back. But we are dealing with the subject of if things are that bad, is the family home the best place to fall back on? Yes. I give a 100% yes to this because, one, your family is the only person that can cover your nakedness. They are the only person that can be able to accommodate your excesses. They are the only people who are able to spend on you without regretting. Friends can do, but at a certain extent, they will go back to your father's compound, be it in the village or somewhere in the city. If there is space there for you to accommodate you and your family for the time being, it is important for you to pack your things and go back there, settle down, and then gather momentum. Oh no, see it as a transition. See it as that, as a transit. Don't take it as a place you're going to settle there permanently. Just look it as a place where you are going to pass time to gather energy, fortify yourself, and then continue your journey.
So, if I get what Apostle and Beaver and Tango is saying is that when you're living with your wife in the house, you should know at the back of your mind that anytime things get wrong or rough, you should rush back home with your family.
Not necessarily having it at the back of your mind, but like he said,
when you're living, you should have a plan B now.
Yes, but don't have that at the back of your mind, because we always say that sometimes a dog should not go back to a vomit. That's what we usually say. And when a man has left his parents to meet the family of the girl and they become one, what usually happens is that they continue in that process. No one wishes for the worst. Everyone that is entering into marriage is looking for the best. So I will never tell a man to have that at the back of your mind. But what I would tell you is that if it gets worse, fall back. It's not wrong to fall back. Even in the military, they always tell you to fall back. Back to base. If things are not going the way it should go, fall back to base. Meaning that is where we come now. They can just think that it's a normal routine. They can just think that you just came to visit as you usually do. Sometimes go there, spend two days. Sometimes spend, go with your family and spend the weekend. Sometimes the holidays. Let their children go there and spend, so that when it is time to fall back, they won't even know that you are falling back, but you are gathering strength from them. So I want to tell you this: it is very important that you fix your family home. Get a good relationship with your family. Your brothers and sisters, put a good relationship, because things can happen. I always tell people that even if you marry and your man is a billionaire, there is going to be a day where things can go off. I've seen companies crumble to nothing. That's why in business there is something that is called liabilities. There are times where this thing go to the worst. You must go back home. You must go somewhere. The truth is, you can settle with a friend for a period of time, but sometimes friends may not be able to sustain you for the length of time that you may want to gain yourself. Sometimes friends may not be able to understand you. Now, some people fall back home on the side of the wife. They decide to say, okay, my wife prefer that we go to their parents because the parents, they are more, well-to-do, or they have the environments that are living every morning at home and going out to look for it. Find it and look for it until you get it, and take your wife back to what you're doing. That's how it is. That's why you see the military people, they don't always go to war with their children and their wives. They always leave them back home, because of what? In case of anything, they can come back and pick their wives and go with them. Sometimes when transfers are done, people always leave their wives and children back, sometimes with their families and other likes, to catch up with themselves. These kind of things can also be done. Some friends, if you have good relationship with people, you can always, scout around with some of the good friends. You can spend some 1 month in Yaoundé, spend some maybe 3 months with this other person. Don't try to bulk one person, or don't try to put all your load on one person. Always try to see how you can divide the load and divide the burden, so that even when you fall back to family, they may not feel the pain. Because you cannot come and spend 2 years in family and nothing is changing and you are just there. They themselves will be bored and they will start insulting you. And sometimes when you fall back to the family, they are also hoping that you're going to also be adding to the family purse. They are not also going to think that you came for empty. No family wants to.
No, but you came there because things were difficult.
Yes, now. But they expect that you should at least do something. Because you should add for the food. The children have added. Heads of the house have added. So you are coming back to the family not to come empty-handed per se. You should come with something to share. Something that they can also be. Sometimes you can go to the farm with them. Sometimes you can create business opportunities and get money and say, Mommy, today, take this money, cook chop.
Okay, let's get from Mr. Sanji Yvette from Menda. Tell us what she thinks about this first subject.
Happy New Year, Mr. Leo. Happy New Year to the wonderful team on board. Happy New Year to our televiewers. 2022 is here, and I know most relationships, marriages, are going to turn on a new page as they keep following Prime R. We are starting this year with if couples should go back to parents' home in case of crisis. Mr. Leo, if I were to answer that question directly, I would say that should be the last option, or the least option even. Because first thing is, marriage is not for boys and girls. You know, boys and girls are those that are still under parental control. Marriage is for men and for women. I mean, men and women that can take responsibility. So if you're getting married, you should know that marriage comes with responsibilities, and you have to show that it. Now, I'm not saying that things will always be good, fine, all through. Obviously, we have moments where, you know, financially couples might rise, sometimes they might fall financially and stuff like that. But if couples plan their lives properly, you know, they'll be able to manage themselves without not running back to that a lot. And then most times, relationships get strained. You know, you live with somebody, you are quick to see that person's weaknesses and stuff like that. Now, but what I'm trying to say here is that if couples should think, if things really go worse and like they maybe economically, they have to consider going back to their parents' home, I would advise that they should drop their standards of living. I think that should be the first option. Drop your standards of living. If you were living in an apartment, maybe 3 rooms, parlor, kitchen, toilet, you could think of getting to a 2-room parlor, kitchen, toilet, or even a 1-room to manage with. So I think they should think of dropping the standards first, not just running back to their parents' home.
Mr. Sanjay is saying is that if things get worse, you could not just, instead of just rushing back, if you are living in a big apartment, you could get a studio and manage inside, or getting into a 1-room, or accept that things are difficult and then live a humbler life. But how easy is it for a couple to move back to?
Or your mom, or maybe, as you said, we were getting married, it's not like we disconnected completely, you know, maybe sharing with your dad or your mom or who can help. But moving back to your family house does not speak well for me. And why do I say so? Because, for example, as a man, I don't think I got married but from my family house. I don't know if I think before even getting married, you did not just move. I think it's mostly women who might stay in their family house and then move and get married. But I think as a man, you first moved to a bachelor's life, and then you do. I think we should start looking at some people who usually go back to their. Well, I'm not saying that it's like a final rule, because like we say, anything we say, we are always looking at high probabilities or high percentage. It's not like it's 100%. But I think, yes, the exception of the rule. But I think people who will just go back to family, it tells me when you were advancing your life, recover from that. Especially maybe like if they go to the boy's house. Let's take they go to the boy's house. You know, there's something called familiarity. When people get close to you, you might be able to accommodate your wife's excesses. But there are people, especially when they already know something is bad. Their parents were always, for example, they know something is really bad. They're like, okay, sometimes I did gay, bad fashion, so be spoil my picky, marry, and all of those things. And you know, people always defend their own. And I know that no man also will be very comfortable going to stay in his wife's family. Personally, I think we should see to it that it's not like things cannot go down. Like even like Mr. Asanji has said, sometimes you might cut down your expenses, cut down your standard of living, but sometimes it might not still be enough, because sometimes there's some tragic situations that might still get so bad. But I think I really want to say that it's not like it's impossible to go back, but I am not for people going back to their family. There's a reason why you move out. There's a reason why you step out. I think that a person who builds his life all round as they're growing, who is selfless and builds his life all round, will not lack the necessary relationships that can step into their lives in certain times of need. And if need be, I would prefer parents support you externally, but not necessarily from their home. I had one of these situations where this young guy has gotten married. He has had his 2 kids. 2 kids. He's a young man. He has had his 2 kids. He has gone to his father's house. And I was advising, and I said, if I were the parents, because sometimes, let me say this, Mr. Leo, parents get so comfortable in their parents' house. Children, sorry, get so comfortable in their parents' house. You might think, and mothers, for example, never make things hard. They will accommodate you. They can keep you, and before long, because sometimes you step out. Sometimes some of us made a better aspect of our life when we stepped out. It requires a stepping out. So I think, like I was saying, like I told these grandparents that you could take those grandchildren and let those people start from somewhere. Maybe they go and rent one small room and start their lives or do something. But I think sometimes that accommodation might really make a lot of things regress. I want to believe that other relationships can support when you have stepped out there, and even the parents can support from a distance. But going back home, I am really not for that idea. Not that it's impossible, but I really don't support that idea.
Apostle Ambe Wentengwa, in this situation, where do you fall back to? Is it the parents of the wife or the parents of the husband, or we consider who is able to accommodate the couple?
You see, there is this pride in men. You know, I'm very pragmatic, and I don't beat around with words. Bogant. No reasonable man, I mean no reasonable man, will accept packing his things to his in-laws' compound. Some men can even bear going back to their father's compound. But a man packing to the in-laws' compound, that is a height of irresponsibility. Number 2, packing back to your father's house, like I said, it is not going there to settle. At the back of your mind, you are on a transit. Circumstances are not fine now. I'm staying here because the Frenchman says, si tu veux avancer, parfois il faut reculer. That is, you fall back to gather momentum. So nature itself will tell you that you are irresponsible for staying with your entire family in your father's compound. Any woman out of 100 women, 80 will fight you for staying with them in your father's compound. Friends will insult you. Neighbors will insult you. Your own parents themselves will make life uncomfortable for you if your stay is too much in that compound. There are situations where you cannot take pride and be accumulating rent somewhere. You can't pay children's fees. You cannot pay for basic necessities. In the name of defending your integrity, your portfolio, and your status as a man, you allow pride override your reality. You should be humble enough to pack your things and say, at this particular moment in my life, life has beaten me hands down. I accept defeat not as a permanently defeated person, but somebody who is temporarily defeated to pick up the broken pieces of his life. You move back to your father's compound in order to re-strategize on how to launch out again in front of you. But Mali says, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. Sometimes you must accept defeat. It's not every battle you win. There are some battles you get out of by accepting defeat. In this life we are, nobody is 100% a winner. Everybody will tell you at one time or the other, life went down. The greatest of men you see today are a combination of continuous failures. The greatest and the successful men you see today have gone through all kinds of failures. And sometimes you will not believe if they ever failed, because life itself will teach us lessons. Number 2, sometimes you pack back to your father's house to find out the character of persons. A woman can be that submissive and blissful and nice because things are going very well. Sometimes you fall back to your father's house for character in you to be built. There are persons that only horrible situations can bring the best out of them. You can also identify the capacity of your wife within that period, how to relate. Also, like Apostle Alfred said, if you don't create a conducive atmosphere where you are fine with your family, because there are persons when they are rich, their family, because to fall back home, the shame to even pack your things and come back as somebody who has missed it in life is not there. And one thing I must conclude here, home is home. Whether you become prosperous, whether you become successful as what, home is home. Never be ashamed to pack your things and go back to your father's house if you cannot meet up basic needs in life.
But Apostle, what of the case where maybe your father is not well to do, he's living in a one-room house or a studio, and the wife's parents are living in a very big villa? What do you do? Because
Mr.
of your
Leo.
pride, you think that you should not go there?
Mr. Leo, I am talking as a man. Men are arrogant creatures. You, Mr. Kum, you are arrogant.
So you die.
Apostle Lefor Divine is arrogant. If you tell him to pack his things to his in-laws compound, this man would choose to sleep in the street. Apostle Alfred seated there. Let's be practical. That's my focus.
So the fallback situation. Now, what in the case where there's no fallback? Both parents are very broke.
Yes.
What do you do?
It means you didn't make provision for rainy days. Yes. Well, how come you were successful and your parents were broke?
No.
How
Are we
come
saying
you
that?
didn't do
Are we saying
something?
that every couple is rich?
No. I'm just saying that.
What of an average couple
That went back.
who can barely survive?
Now, this is the truth.
Yes.
Before you get married, the truth is that you should be ready.
Man of God.
Now, you should be ready to a point. Let me just tell you something.
Yes.
If you can't get a farm that you can be harvesting food and other things, get some other kind of sources that you can raise income. And get someone to be there to take care of. So I told my wife, all right, we're going to leave this thing now. Let's go down. And she saw with it, and we went down. And that was one of the best times of our lives too, because we have to build love with my own mother that I did not have an opportunity to live with her for a very long time. And we had to relate with my own brothers and sisters to create that bond and that relationship. And it was not for long, as I'm saying, because we had the route we were going to. We had some other things. Now, what I think in this particular case, Mr. Leo, is that in cases where the families are not well to do, we divide the people. If you have kids, you can send your wife and the children maybe to your mother, to her mother. Then you go to your own side. Now, making sure that you're just shuffling between the two homes. And then that will also make you to know that you don't have a long time to rebuild yourself. You don't have a long time. You just have to just be going here, visit this one, buy things and take there for them to eat and this kind of a thing. That's when, like Apostle Divine said, you need to fall back to your friends too. It's during that time that your friends and your relations are going to help you, especially if you treated them well.
Stay with us in a single room house for almost 2 years now, and she's controlling everything, including food money.
Okay.
Yes. Conversely, things are difficult now for the parents.
Yes.
Crisis, maybe crisis.
Yes.
Yes, and it's practical. Maybe crisis has driven her from the village, and we know all of this kind of things. And you see-
When they talk about character,
Yeah.
your character when you go back, I believe that they will give us an opportunity, because you need to know the attitude that will keep you when you fall back.
Yes, I think you see, this is why we're trying to say here. The truth is, we should stop treating home or family. I'm still talking about our major topic here, to live with our parents. We should stop looking at our parents' house like the only relationship
And we should fall back.
that we should fall back to. You see, that's why, yes, and like Apostle Ambe say, okay, finally. You get it? Yeah, he has said, Apostle Ambe has said finally, but some people are not hearing that finally anyway, because I'm saying this because a lot of people have gotten to that place, like they said, because sometimes let's also be practical, as we are saying. Not all our family, some of our parents, by the time they had sent away all of these things, sometimes you go back with your wife. Then all of a sudden, Somebody come, and sometimes these our parents also might not be well to do, because the truth is that we cannot always assume that as we are going ahead, because we're also not thinking that all the people who finally entered into crisis was that they were very successful, like some very big people out there and had so many millions or billions. No, it could still be some average couple who are making their life and crisis hit. You understand? And they are going back. Even their parents also had been struggling to make ends meet. So my question is, a grown-up man, I'm trying to point out here that a grown-up man must have, that's what we talk about before you get married, have financial intelligence, have emotional intelligence. All of these things has a lot to also do with your how you build your life. You cannot, you do not, you are not an island. No man is an island. You cannot say that you are self-made. A person who is successful, in fact, one of the way we measure success is relationships. And I think if you had been successful before, you must have successful people who have not gone down. Because you cannot succeed alone.
That's true.
That's the honest truth. And if you had truly been honest and built a good life, you might not put all that pressure on one man per se, like you were saying.
Yes.
But you would have a certain people, not many, or all, or a tight circle that can sustain you. I believe, in fact, most successful shares marital problem. Yeah, that's why you're laughing. It's not even that's just marital problem.
But then my question is, he says the best place to go to is your father's house. What if your wife is not very comfortable going with you and says, let me go to my mother's house, you go to your father's house, we relate, and then when things get
okay, anyway, I think you answer that question, but I think
no, you could see.
Okay, yes.
Because we are talking about falling back.
Falling back.
Must the falling back be together
yes. I think Apostle Alfred mentioned something like that. Yeah. That there can be a situation based on the family dynamics that even children go somewhere else. Wife can even still go somewhere. Because for me, if my wife is well to do and I know that I cannot go there, I can send them back. I can send her back to her parents, even with the kids. Yes. If I know that they'll be taken care of, and I sleep on the floor. My point is that I cannot. For me, it's not talking. Yes, for me. Yes, for me, it's that point because even to my own parents, it's not as if my parents are bad. My mom will always, in fact, anybody who knows, especially moms, that can even shout, that can say, now wait, you understand? But moms will always embrace. And sometimes their embracing might not be healthy for you. Not that they plan it. You understand? So my point is, we should get to that place. I want the people who have left to go and marry to not see their home like just like that place, because there's some people that as the pressure wants to come a little bit, they say no, home is home. Like I say, home is home. No, I think we should be practical here.
My room there for
my room there. No, I know every family that when their children are going, they say if anything bad, come back. No,
no worry.
Yes,
their in-laws. Mr. Kum, good evening to you all. Ambe Kum in Mutengene. If my father don't have a house, where should I go to? Yes, very difficult one. Greetings, Mr. Leo. Before a man goes back home, then it means it is the worst of the worst. But going back, especially when there was a time when you were fine, doesn't speak well of your socializing side of life. Going back is a bold decision, but not that your health is at risk from what or challenges you will face. No matter what, no matter how wealthy the wife's parents are, the support they give should be from a distance. Let your wife, for the sake of protecting your dignity, talk to the parents instead, not you going down. If you build the house your parents are living in and have been in constant visits and giving constant support back home, then you are at least safe. But you should make your stay. You shouldn't make your stay long. Tiku Felix is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. If there is no space in my house to advise men that it is good to establish a 2-bedroom house back at home, provided there is a family land, so that when things get rough, one can manage in that 2-bedroom house while hustling. Yeah, it's not always. Anyway, it depends. In the village, it may not be too costly. Good evening, Mr. Leo. For my parents' favorites will always find it easier to go home. Stegal is writing from Mundemba. Stegal, good evening to you. Good evening and Happy New Year, my media prime. Mr. Leo, God forbid that such a thing should never happen to me and husband, because my sister-in-laws will not allow us to drink water. For me, if it happens that I and my husband lose our jobs, I would prefer to take my children to my in-laws and look for a job as house help where I will stay, and for my husband, I would prefer him to look for friends who he can part-time with and do some minor jobs around. Many ladies are actually, you get what they are saying. It's not easy for them to go back. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Leo, like I explained, I spoke about difficulties accommodating yourself with in-laws. I spoke about it here. We are talking about the worst case scenario. The issue is, I want us to understand the subject we are dealing with. Before a man will come to a point of packing his things first to go back to their house, it must be a situation at dead end.
Maybe it's only one year.
There is no hope. I mean, the last hope. We are talking about the last hope because many measures could be put in place before you finally conclude going home. Before you have tried. That is a situation where you have tried every other means possible. There is no way out. If we start giving substitutes here about friends, dropping standard of living, going for lesser or sending children to in-law, I'm talking about a situation where we are dealing with the topic there. A situation where we are at a dead end. The last and only hope is to pack your things and fall back either to your in-laws' house or you fall back to your father's house. That's what we are dealing here. So let's focus on the subject we are dealing with, or else we are going to be talking other matters that does not concern the subject matter. Not when I come on television, I focus on the subject and we deal with it. Before a man would decide to pack his things and go back to his father's house, all these ideas you are giving like that about friends, cutting standard of living, they must have tried them.
And has failed.
And it has failed. Now, this is the situation now. Going back to your father's house as a woman, that is why you see, if a daughter-in-law does not build a relationship with her in-laws during rainy days, it will be difficult for her to go there. You cannot be that dishonest and stubborn as a wife to the extent whereby you cannot look into your mother-in-law's face or your father-in-law's face.
Don't push all man.
You have insulted everybody and everywhere looks like hell. It's an error. Your mother-in-law and your father-in-law is equal to your father and your mother. The same respect you accord to your mother-in-law and your father-in-law is the same respect you accord to them. The fact that you give them bride price did not make them any less. There must be relationship on both sides. That's why I always encourage the men to relate more with the woman's family, while the woman relates more with the man's family. This crisscross relationship is what strengthens the bond between both families when things are rough. If things are rough for the son and daughter, they both in-laws can sit down, either look for a means to settle people or decide to share the responsibilities. Either the mother-in-law of the girl, the man, takes the children, then the father-in-law says, okay, you guys come and stay here until you pick yourself. That has to do with relationship. When people get married and become financially buoyant, they feel like they don't need any individual. This life we are running is a shadow. No matter how successful you may be, the richest man on earth is not him that has money, it's him that has people. And that's the reason why you must make sure that relationship in families are strengthened. But there are some girls who cannot look into
2015 and things didn't favor me. I came back in 2017. I took a decision by sending my wife and children to my wife's parents. While I went to our own, I have to work hard, and now I'm living with my family again. Emerich writing there. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Valentine from Boya. What about you fall back to your wife's compound when she's the only one to the parents and the parents are no more? Okay, good evening, Mr. Leo. Moving back to the family house is no option. It's problematic. I will not encourage that. Things can go down, but you need to manage. I don't buy the idea of moving back. Mr. Ngek Dexmond, writing from Kumba. I sir, there are even terrible situations where some shameless men move back to their wife's parents and even get her pregnant there. Family home is the
I'm telling you.
family home is the only door that shall always be open unconditionally in worst cases. Why go to suffer, risk the kids or best friends when home is available, except you didn't behave well with them when things were good. Mona Atal writing from Bamenda. Good evening. Leave your wife with her family and small boys start to be stranded to the level of going back home. It's a big no for me. Diane is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Diane. This one says, I just leave it because I'm to get married. George writing from Bamenda. Mr. Leo, good evening. Please, Apostle, so if my father leaves a house behind at its mine, so do I leave it to pay rent somewhere else? I mean a modern house, not family house, okay? That one you are going to rent is not because you have problems. Nope, they should not try to go back to the house, okay? Good evening to all. I see no reason for one's parents not to accept his or her family because it was for a good reason before he or she is going back, because that must be the last solution, and you guys learn to respect the family too. I'm Raphael writing from Bacho Akagbe. Good evening to you. This one says, what if your parents don't have a house or where we're living with you? Fonda Remy is writing. Yes, that is things God was while they were living with you. When you wrong to. Okay.
I think there is something very sensitive about some of these questions that are raised.
Yes.
Yes. We are just looking at so many other things. Does the African man truly leave their family? That's what we should ask ourselves.
In an apartment they were renting. Like I said, the first thing is to consider dropping the standards of living. Maybe they were taking 3 square meals a day. They could drop to 2 square meals a day. Maybe they were living in like I said, in an apartment. They could consider, because the truth is that I will advise any couple to even better stay in a single room. Yes, don't bother about what people will say. Don't even think of it. It is your life. You are accountable for your life. You are not living your life to please others. I would prefer to tell couples to have a single room where they can spend less for rent. Then they could drop their living standards. If their children were in some kind of expensive schools or some kind of things, if they already had kids, they could think of sending the children to government schools and stuff like that. Like I said, going back to parents' home will be the last option for me. You can't go out there and be a full responsible man. Then later on, you want to come back and be under your parents. Not hard enough again to to find yourself out of your parents' home. Once you stay in your parents' home, you are not paying house bills. You are not paying bills. You're not paying rents. Most of the things, maybe your parents are taking care of it. And you know what? If you are not careful, you might sit there, become too comfortable, and then you will not go out there. Comfort zone is the worst place ever for anybody that wants to rise. If you limit yourself within your comfort zone, you will not go anywhere. And the truth is, Mr. Leo, I prefer that even if you were a couples find themselves in that kind of a situation, and the family wants to help, why can't the family instead look for money and give them to start off a business? Instead of taking them back, taking them to come and stay, the family should look for, if they could get a capital of even 100,000, say even 50,000 or whatever, and say, okay, I've seen that your life is coming down. People should take this, get something doing, get a business, and see how you can sustain yourself. You cannot give somebody fish and you expect that person to live happily. You teach that person how to fish. Teach that person how to fish if you want them to eat fish for the rest of their lives. So I still think that going back to parents' home should be the last option, Mr. Leo.
Okay, we are going to take a short break to continue after.
share strong moments full of twists and turns, and even make the younger ones dream.
Passage en vitesse, Mac Noël. Tout est prêt pour qu'on profite de
Welcome back to watching Prime on My Media Prime. Apostle Esinge, let's take the case where your parents actually were living with you.
Okay.
At the time the crisis came. Yes. What do you do?
Yes.
Things are really difficult.
Yes, yes. That's why we're saying that when your parents raise you, they are not raising you for that you should just depend on yourself and your wife, or maybe a rented place. My mother said something. She said she didn't build a house, but she raised her children. And you invested in, you can comfortably get back there. So I think it's a disgrace to stay with your mother and your father for 5 years. It's not a good thing. Yes. Put something, raise something small, somewhere. Put them there. So that tomorrow, or even if you don't raise something small, rent another place somewhere where they are living there. But I will always advise people that build something, put up a structure. Some of you have lands in villages, but you're only concentrating to build houses in the cities. If you can't build a house in the city, put up something in the village. I happen to have pastored one time in Bachontai. I was pastoring Mbinjong, Bachontai, Bachakangwe. I was pastoring in the Full Gospel Mission in that very area. And I saw a lot of young men who have lived in the coast before, in the towns. They will tell you that I was working with this, I was working with this, I was working with this. Okay, what are you doing in the village? Things went rough. And I remember that we had cocoa farms in the village. So I decided to come and fall back, stay in our house and work some cocoa farm to raise money to fall back, to go back to where I came from. And that's what I saw. A lot of young men are there. A lot of young men are there. This is why at this particular moment, there is something I'm trying to do in my family. I'm trying to draw the children closer. The reason I'm trying to draw them closer is to be able to have a sense of building a comfortable environment for everybody. Now, at first, it was the grandparents that used to bring people together, the father and mother. When they are alive, they will bring people together. Even so, when that was in America, whatever, you see them coming back maybe during the December period because of what? There was a grandmother or grandfather somewhere. And of late, we realized that most grandparents or grandfathers are of late. They are no more existing and the family has scattered. It's not a good idea. We should be able to do something for ourselves because we don't know what can happen tomorrow. Somebody needs somewhere to fall back tomorrow. That auntie you were rejected, that uncle you hated, that person you were not relating with, you may just need to fall back. And when we say fall back to your parents' houses, we are not just talking only about your father or mother. There can be a relative somewhere. There can be someone you were treating nicely. There can be someone you had a good relationship with. And that's why I don't joke with relationships that has to do with my family. I don't joke with them at this moment. You know, because of what? You don't know what will happen. Because I've seen, some of us grew up and we saw families, some people travel abroad and they came back just with a suitcase. Yes, some travel abroad and they told us
will never love you 100%. Just be good to do your part and don't care about their character. You will live with them with no problem, but I will not like the idea of going back because one can never be free in someone's house. Ani Yefon, writing from Yaoundé, men should try and build even a room in their home so that when it's bad, they should go back and enter their house, not parents. Okay? Good evening, Media Prime. Based on the topic we are talking about, when you have tried everything, there is dropping your expenditure and then not moving. The best place is for you to fall back at home, and from there you can pick up and bounce back. So let's try to interact between two families, as the man of God just said. It's Pastor Bless, writing from mile 16. Pastor, not too clear there, but the message is gotten. Mr. Leo, good evening to you all. in the studio, what about the case that a man gives birth with a woman and the man refuses to get married to the woman? The woman's parents decide to claim the children and children go out to make life better for them. Okay, I'm sure that's a topic for another day. Good evening, it's Mercy from Olimbe. This lady, nobody knows tomorrow. I'm fine with my mom and my in-laws, and it happens that things got bad to the extent that we have to fall back to the parents. My mom can welcome my husband and I as well as my parents-in-law to married men and women. Please do by all possible means to create a good relationship with your in-laws. It will help you. Nobody knows tomorrow. Good evening to you, Shantu. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I think Prophet Ambe is on point. When you reach the end, your last hope is your family. So let's try to make peace with all our in-laws. Like Prophet Ambe said, the wife should take her in-law as parents. It's Auntie Lucy writing from Boya, Apostle Lefor Divine. We have to go back to our in-laws, but we are also supposed to be ready. You don't go back because things are difficult and expect to be all bossy, expecting to live the life you lived in town, or when you was you become another man in your father's house.
In which, on what terms?
You should be more friendly.
You should instead be very flexible and know how to make people not even to notice you are staying there.
Yes.
You should instead make them not to feel or comfort. Yes, it requires humility, and that is why I would advise. For me personally, if couples move back, I want to personally, okay, let me say this. I want to advise the man not to stay there. Keep the family there, go and hustle. Yes, sometimes when the entire family is there, father, mother, children, it reflects.
Let me ask this question. Because he's raising a point
yes.
here. The man
Keep
is
them
going
there.
back. Things are difficult. They are going back to do what? To reflect?
Yes.
How long should you stay?
Mr. Leo. When we say going back to your father's house, I'm still saying it here. That is to say, there is no place you can hang on for a moment while looking for a way out of the crisis. They say patience is not folding your arm and waiting for things to happen. It's doing what you are supposed to be. Compound, you are making the necessary connections. Yes. Staying there does not mean that you're all in the house. You get up in the morning, you are looking for what next to do, the next connection to get, the next job to get. Within that period, you must be very agile and active to go out of that place more than ever before.
Yes, and
it's only a lazy man, an irresponsible man, that will go back and comfortable sit down. Your mother pounds fufu in the morning, give you eat.
And starts making babies.
In the evening, you start eating again, and then you are impregnating your wife in that house. As a matter of fact, both of you supposed to boycott childbearing at that period, because you can barely take care of yourself and the available children. Making children at that time is a height of irresponsibility and gigoloism.
Mr. that question you asked me, the truth is that at that point in time, circumstances supposed to at least, if anything, form character in you.
Now, number two,
at least
what I want to address is God knows how to humble people. Some situations happen in life for God to break our pride. There are some people who are too arrogant to the extent where God creates such circumstances for you to come back to yourself because you stumble into success with that character.
Okay. So it's
so while you are there, like you asked me,
to his parents, because the Bible says a man shall leave his parents and cleave unto his wife. That's a topic also for another day. Accepting money from parents in rainy days for business, or use it to pay rent elsewhere while you can't accept to move back to their house, like our sister said. It's like denying to eat beans and accepting contract. It's about worst case when you can't even afford a single room. Only home will receive you and the kids. Mona Ato writing, take care of your parents when you're fine, and you'll never regret, because parents will never let you down. Found up Remy writing, Mr. Leo, Many participants and even those in the studio are trying to change the topic. Why? Only Apostle Ambe is on the topic. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. Apostle Valentine is not talking bad. We must know that life at times does not move the way we think. So falling back and rethinking is not a bad idea. If only you are going to come out successful. Claude writing from Moyuka. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The roadside. As a man, never give up. Sweat to the last sweat to get up again and be like a man. Evaristus is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you. All is blessed from Bamenda. A man who is in his right senses will not go back to the parents' house. There are many jobs out there that can help to provide for his family, and for me, I cannot do that. Thank you. Good evening to all of you there, Mr. Leo. To me, when couples have crisis, there is no need of going back to their parents, looking back into the Bible. A man must leave his family and form another family. Therefore, going back is like a taboo. It is Ephraim writing from Yaoundé also. Good evening in the house. I see no reason why he or she should not go back to the parents' home so as to gather more positive experience. Latan is writing from Widikum. When you build a good relationship with your in-laws, and the in-laws may even be the ones to opt to help you. It also depends on the temperaments of both couples and parents. Regina is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Leo. What if the mother-in-law is a type that always take your wife to visit marabouts at the least opportunity? Do you think I live in such a home with my wife? I better live under a bridge than to live in such a home. Evaristus is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to Apostle Ambe, who is always on prime hour to educate Cameroonians. Gerard is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Gerard. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Why should couples even think of under very intense scrutiny at different levels, especially in Africa? Some people really are wanting to understand what this white wedding is all about, thinking that it is a double wedding for Africans.
Yes, Mr. Leo, you know, this is going to be a tussle now on this platform because people hold different opinions. Okay. But I'm going to be very frank when it comes to the issue of white wedding. As it is called white. I don't know if we are white here. You are a black man. There's a color wedding, and there's a black wedding, and there's a white wedding. So this is white wedding. I can't be a black man and I'm practicing white wedding. W-H-I-T-E, white wedding. Why should we be so colonized to the extent where we forget our own realities? We are trying to live the counterfeit of our own lives. We are trying to adapt a life that does not go with us. I said on this platform once that Ferdinand Lepo Oyono in his book, The Old Man and the Medal, said, Les pieds de Mecca ne pouvaient pas entrer to wed the very first time in church. Am I a British? Am I an English? I am a Cameroonian. I am an African. We have a way we wed in Africa. So white wedding is inconsequential. White wedding is not church wedding. This nuance supposed to be clearly spelled out. White wedding is not church wedding. It should be clearly spelled out. A church wedding is the intervention of a pastor blessing couple while they are wearing white gown, blue gown, yellow gown, green gown, or black gown. Or no gown at all. So if we do African wedding and still go and do English wedding, it's double expenses on the same thing, thereby causing us to stress. The thing is, for the fact that a light has stayed too long in office does not make it true. That's the truth. The fact that a lie has stayed too long in office does not make it true. They should not force on us what we don't want. Biblically speaking, there is no place in scripture where there is a white wedding. I'm talking as a clergy. So this one should be clearly spelled out that if people are doing white wedding, it should be their personal conviction. And a woman should not qualify a man's love for her based on white wedding. Because I have been, as a pastor, I've seen, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be blessing a wedding in church on this 15th of this January in my church. 2 of my children are getting married. I am not against the idea of white wedding. They are free. If they have the money to do it, they should do it. But it shouldn't be a doctrine. It should not be an obligation, and a woman should not hang on it to qualify if a man loves her or not. That's my stand, and that's my first take.
Okay, that's his stand. This one says, Happy New Year to you all in the studio. I have seen many men who sent their family back home and became wayward. For me, it is good to fall back home and endure all the insults so it could help you rise again. Thanks. White wedding is a culture of the white boy, not African tradition, which has caused so many people today to be poor, like most of my brothers. Obeni, people have borrowed money to do something which is uncalled for. Yes, your take on the puzzle, white wedding. Why is it becoming problematic and very topical across Africa today?
Poverty.
Okay.
Poverty is the reason. When people have money, they don't complain about that wedding. They will just do it without any problem. It's when people don't have money again, that's when they begin to talk about those things. Yes, that's also what I think. Yes, because if you have your money, you do your wedding softly, you go you. Nothing. But now, the reason we are saying that people should not have that wedding is because you spend money and you cannot do kind of thing. Now, for example, Apostle Ambe was talking about the white man's culture and everything. I've not seen Apostle Ambe having a donkey in his house that he's using to move up and down. He's using a car. Cars are white man thing. All those things came from Europe and America and other things. I mean, them just go ahead and do what they want to do, provided it doesn't pose a problem after marriage, after your wedding. That's it. Because a lot of people have spent this kind of money, and at the end of the day, they can't live a happy home because they have debts to pay, they have rents to pay, they have bills to pay, and they can't meet it. So if for any reason we are going to talk against a white wedding issue, we are going to be talking on it based on maybe expenditures, some kind of things that the after effect to a particular marriage. Because if you want to talk about white, nearly everything we are using now is white man. Oh, even this television we are talking there now is white man thing. But we are there every week. Every day, Apostle Ambe is here every day. He's talking on this particular area. So when we want to talk about, we want to refute what the white man brought to us, we should be able to ask ourselves, why do we embrace some things and become part of us? Even some of the dresses we're wearing today look like Mr. Leo is putting on one tie there. It's a British man. That's a British cloth and everything. Is that an African dress? Because I am more an African than all of you here. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. So we are not going to be buying some other things from the white man. We're not going to take other things. Even the cream we are using, we were not used to this. We were using
putting it on.
Yes, women do that.
Is it not a sign of inferiority complex?
No.
We think that it is by putting on that one that we feel more important. Mr. Leo, yes.
Women don't wear dresses to show the men. They wear dresses to compete with their friends.
Yeah, but
women are competitive beings. You will see somebody will wear a gown to wed, and you will say, "My uncle passed the own." So they will go in to wear that gown.
What is a take home that women should be encouraged to compete with others or to uphold what is African?
No, we don't advise women to put pressure, especially pressure on people. If you can, go for it. Okay. But if you cannot, please leave it. And I am also saying that let's leave this African thing, because obviously we have nothing African left with us. Our language, the one we are speaking here, even the pidgin that we had as our own small jam box that we jam from the white man language and our own, we join them together. We are ashamed to talk about it. We are now speaking with the white man's grammar. And if I speak here in English and pidgin English, people will begin to think that I'm a brute, or should they be talked down upon? No. That's what I don't accept. And that's why I'm still looking at it. I'm still trying to say that if I see people who want to marry white wedding and they have the means and they can live comfortably, I will encourage them. But if you cannot, don't force a man. Don't tell people to borrow. Don't borrow money to marry. It's not a good thing. Even your daddy, don't borrow money to pay daddy. The dowry we are talking about today, is it the dowry we were paying before? You want to go and pay dowry, you buy schnapps, you buy whiskey. Whiskey that the gods did drink and whiskey on Amatango. Oh, master. You see, 6th grade beer. The gods are drinking white man drink now.
To go to
Black level.
Papa knows
What are you talking?
Black level, gold level.
They tell you to bring shirt, white shirt now own. It doesn't mean they bring bashi. When you wear bashi, you know that thing is traditional and some kind of things.
Yeah, but if many persons are talking about it, is it not also because we've made it a norm? Some people even think that it's biblical, it is religious, it is what ought to be.
No.
That almost everybody has to do a white wedding where some women are looking at their husbands as failures just because they did not.
And after reception, that should cause
it's a bridal train
and all of those things. And I think where we're having an issue, which we are struggling to put out, is you don't need all of that to have a successful wedding. That's one. Two, like you said, some people think that because your husband could not provide that for you, he is not good enough, and we have an issue with that. Three, I think there's also an update now. It must not be a white gown. In fact, when you look at the whole trend, and even in the church, this white gown thing, they were trying to indicate that even white had to do with virginity. It had to do with purity. It had to do with how many girls, even they will say kiss the bride in church, the way the people kiss, you can already know very well, the way they are kissing, you know very well that they have, it don't take, they just wait and say, make that close come on. So you at first when they go say kiss the bride, you see the way they get the shy, the man shy. No, the way the man
you don't kiss the bride, you swallow the
now pastor the says it correct. Yeah. So look at it. So you
what do they do with this cake?
That's something that it beats my imagination.
What do they do with the cake?
DJ 1 million and all of those things. Yes, but why? So we are saying that it doesn't need to be so. We could even upgrade our traditional weddings. Our traditional weddings, where because if we had been celebrating our own even attires, these people also would have been borrowing from us.
They'll be buying it.
They are borrowing it
right now. So I think what we are, for me, my take home is that we can upgrade. After all, they have already modernized traditional. The gods are now going for black label and 80-year-old whiskeys.
Yeah,
so upgrade is also money. So I will upgrade it for what?
The problem is not really about the money.
The problem is my issue here is the traditional wedding for some is really very expensive.
It's very expensive.
Why
double?
Yes.
That's my point. You see, I understand his problem. It's a double expenditure, and I knew why he was saying because some people feel that after doing that, it's not good enough. That is where our problem is.
20 million.
You understand now? That's where I'm trying to hit the point here. The thing is that after people do this traditional wedding, our mind is telling us that is not good enough. And that's what the problem is. So that's why I'm saying that rather than doubling the expenditure, I understand your point. If you have your money flaunt, because I can carry my horse. After that, you can even still go and buy horse. You ride it, I just married, and walk around the whole town. That's not our problem. You get it? You can even buy limousine and say these people just got married. That's the problem. Our issue comes with that core belief that our own traditional rights is not strong enough, it's not good enough. That's where our problem comes from. And I think if we can upgrade our traditional, that beautiful African way of wearing is equivalent to a white gown.
Okay, and you just bring pastor for them.
Good, exactly.
Tiku Felix is bringing another dynamic. He says, Mr. Liu, even the white man nowadays doesn't spend too much on weddings. Neither do they even invite a crowd like black do in doing a white man's kind of wedding. The problem is because of competition. Ladies are quality wedding based on this. After a traditional African wedding which received the father's blessings, just a blessing from the spiritual head is okay. Tiku Felix writing here. Yes, he's saying that we say we are wanting to identify with the white man's culture. But when you look at the white man doing this white wedding, it is very solemn.
You don't even crash it.
Yes. So who are we actually wanting to liken ourselves to?
It wasn't like that from the beginning. the white man is innovative. If you look at it critically, they began creating mobile phones that were very large. Today they have very portable mobile phones. The white man has upgraded his wedding, knowing that they cannot take an event in a day to determine a lifetime relationship. So they have reduced the cost while they're investing in other things. We copied it and brought it here, and we are just flaunting it. What is aching me is this: a man would take 25 years to raise a daughter, spend more. If you go and calculate how much money is invested in the so-called white wedding, it's not equivalent or even half of the amount given as bride price on the girl's head, whose fathers have taken time to invest in her to bring her up. How can we be investing in something that has no impact in return? Secondly, Apostle Alfred said that we are using white man car. There is a difference between the culture of a people and invention. It is but certain that wedding is a culture. Car is not a culture. Car is not a culture. Let us separate these things here very, very clear. A car is not a culture, it's an invention.
No, how can you say that?
Why are you arguing?
It's a culture.
What? How can car be a culture?
So aeroplane is a culture?
Plane is a
Science
culture.
is the white man culture.
No. Science is not a white man's culture, because there are many blacks in Europe inventing.
Because they went to learn the white
Not because of what you are talking about, black and white here. There are blacks inventing. Don't tell me that it's a white man's culture. The person that solved the mathematical problem that carried the American to the aviation in the space is a black woman. The person that found the computer is a black man.
Where
so
did they
science,
do that? It's in a white man place.
White man place. How can it be a white culture?
They
Mr.
stay in
Mr.
blue
Lu,
line and
if I get married to
The civilization started in Africa.
in Africa,
Where?
wait, let's go out of that.
What
Mr.
did they
Lu.
produce?
Let's go out of that. If I go and marry my woman in America with an African attire there, does that make it a white man marriage? If I go and marry my woman in America with an African culture, does that make it a white man marriage because it was America? That a black man invented food in America makes it a white man culture. How does that make a white man culture? Let us put that. We are talking about a way of life. A culture is the way of life of a people. It's no invention.
Education is what? It's civilization, which has to do with culture.
Where I said, Apostle Singer,
But I don't think that there's some cultures that we must accept. There's the ones that we must.
That's what we should not accept.
Listen. A car invention is not a culture.
It's a culture.
Let's even assume that it is the white man's culture.
Yes.
But the white man is not even doing what we are doing.
That's what we are talking about.
What culture are we?
We have borrowed that thing and brought here.
And we're just doing that in
Now, white man does not do traditional marriage and does white wedding. We are doing traditional marriage and go and do again white wedding. Why don't we just add Indian marriage to it? Since we are copying marriages from all continents.
We should be talking against excesses, not against the practice.
No, I'm not against. I'm not against the practice or whatever. I'm against that particular thing called white wedding. I am a black man.
But a white wedding for a white man is their traditional wedding.
It's a traditional wedding.
That's their traditional wedding.
And then why don't
It's a
that be
traditional
my
wedding?
traditional wedding?
As long as that's a traditional wedding. So for us, that's what we said. Let's focus on
the
building, modernizing,
The traditional
and
wedding.
glorifying our traditional wedding. And so that white man too will start saying that he wants to do.
It is everybody is out to sell their culture.
Yes.
Remember that when we are practicing that thing, we are sending. If we want to go at the level of trade and economics, we are investing in the white man. People also start buying our traditional regalia in other countries to conduct weddings. That's also income generating source in the economy. Why do we go to the extent of always sending money out? We don't create a means for income to enter here. That's what I'm talking about. Look at the traditional wear that was introduced by Cameroon in the Brazil World Cup. People bought it. In Japan, it's the same talk. That talk that they are using. That thing is generating income to country because we are the one producing the particular attire. If we don't sell our own culture outside, which is a means of generating income, we keep on buying cultures from here and there and bringing here. We're only taking money outside. Money not come. Are you not seeing that the culture we are practicing from outside has helped to come our economy? Let's not begin to talk about what white wedding. What white wedding? White wedding is not church wedding.
No, that's
Please, let me take. Okay, no, let us also hear from Mr. Cedrick. We may forget her. Yes.
Greetings once more, Mr. Leo. This second topic of the white wedding puzzle, I'll be very factual here that the white wedding is not our culture. We adopted this culture from the West. And if you look at the definition of white wedding, it's a traditional church wedding where the bride puts on white. Traditional church wedding, which means it is somebody's tradition. It's someone's tradition. We have our own tradition here, like in the Northwest, when we're doing traditional marriage, most couples put on togo. Or I don't know how you might call it. We have different cultures. But in the West, people, especially of those higher classes, those rich, wealthy people in the West, white wedding it has to do with the color white, and it is not our culture. Now, we adopted it, and what is most important during this particular event is that the pastor gets to bless the couple. So the blessings is the most important thing that takes place during the white wedding. It is not how flamboyant the wedding is. It is not the wedding decor that has cost millions. It is not the wedding cake that is big and mighty. It's not the wedding gown that is long. It is none of those things. Which means any couple, you can get a pastor's blessing, even by putting on a normal church dress. You can get a pastor's blessing, even after signing at the court. I mean, after the civil wedding, the civil marriage, civil status, you can get a pastor to bless you, and you are married. So how flamboyant a wedding is, it's not a determinant factor for a successful marriage.
Thank you, Mr. Sanji, coming in there from the mainland Northwest Regional. Apostle Alfred is singing. But in Africa, a white wedding seemingly is given a greater attention and value than a traditional wedding, where the father, actually the ancestors and almost every, that is where the partner is cooked.
Yes.
Yes, but importance is given to the white wedding.
It is really a sad thing, Mr. Leo. It's a sad thing. It's just that people abuse things a lot. Mm-hmm. You see, when people are getting married, they should pay allegiance to the family that raised up their daughter. Mm-hmm. They should pay allegiance. We are calling on people to come back to their consciousness, especially these our brothers and sisters who travel out of the country and they come back. The bulk of everything should be in your village. If you snap it and carry it abroad, the white man will clap for you and they will thank you for what you did. Do your decoration under a plantain bunch tree, where there's a long bunch of plantains that shows fruitfulness. One cassava that is very long like this,
big like that, like as an agri show,
with Igbo cocoa, where they like in a house.
And country fowl.
Yes, with the goat, where they with the belly. Can you imagine? People will clap for you. Let us add beauty to what we do.
Yeah.
Let us make it good. Let's not make these parents to think that they wasted their time to raise daughters. Because the truth about it is that after you marry, you don't even have time for those people much. After some time, you send them $50, $100. And then when you born Pekin, you call them and they can carry on for you. You say you take your mommy go abroad. That is an insult. You have wasted life. Your life is a waste. Give them food. A blessing. You have spoken back to your community. We are saying, though we also say that some of our parents have brought up very high dowries and everything that is making the whole thing to become a problem. But sometimes be joyful when you pay those kind of amounts. You are helping these people, not necessarily saying that, okay, you are hurt that they ask you much money. Say, okay, now, instead of me trying to go and spend that money to rent a hall for 500,000, why not just summarize that money and instead add it from my dowry? But that these people will honor me more and respect.
Yeah,
because you will not fall back to that white wedding tomorrow, you will fall back to your village tomorrow when there's a problem. Your parents will always be there. So I think that we should give honor to what we are doing. Though we want to say that, we don't want to say that if you can do your white wedding, you should not do it. But please, add grandeur, add beauty to our African culture and make it to become so beautiful. Do your wedding in such a way that traditional issues will come up. Like one of my younger brothers just did wedding in Bamenda there, and I was so happy because I saw a lot of traditional plates, traditional dishes, and then the whole fufu na for hands
Sell me this culture.
with a small jamanjama for on top the fufu oma who you own so. They were not eating on plates. They were eating.
The culture.
Yes, they ate it like that. It was a beauty. I kept it in my phone. I don't want to delete it because it's a beauty. That's the African culture that we are tarnishing and we are destroying till tomorrow. So I would say that in as much as I support people to do their white weddings and everything, I also say that you have done bad by destroying your culture. You have done bad by trying to destroy your very essence. That's why people don't even respect marriage again. A girl will leave the parents and go and stay in a man's house and give birth to 3 children, and that is when they want to even know whether the girl has a family. How do you want to honor that kind of person? How do you want to honor that kind of marriage? You know, give beauty to our thing.
Okay. Good evening in the studio. I'm Luis in Limbe. This wedding, the only important wedding is the traditional wedding. The church also created a church wedding to increase income generating activities. I don't think that is the topic for tonight. Good evening, Mr. Leo. To who do we pay the dowry of a white wedding? Because I know only of traditional wedding. Don Alino is writing from Tarinkon. Okay. This one says there is a difference between dowry and bride price. Okay. We discussed about that already. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Concerning the concept of white wedding, I think the panelists have not been able to objectively define to us what the white wedding is. To me, a traditional wedding is what the white man considers their white wedding. But we Africans today, because we have copied and are now more religious than the white man, we are now leading the white wedding for them to copy. Sama Nwana writing, we do not need, okay. Tiku Felix again says, Mr. Leo Apostle Lefor is putting up a straight point. We should take seriously inferiority complex is making the black believe that no matter how much is spent on traditional wedding, it is still not enough. On the other hand, marriage in Africa never ends. The parents receiving just call or not during traditional wedding is just significant to a bond between the two families. The groom takes responsibility to whatever happens to the bride's family till. This is not so. This is not so with the white man. Okay. Yes, but you have to be burying the die now. Anytime that there's something that.
It's a lie. It's a lie. What is saying there?
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Interesting program you have there. I think white wedding is good, but most struggling youths today tend to indebt themselves. Happy New Year to you, ruling this attempt. We don't even need to upgrade our traditional wedding before it will be called a wedding. The normal rites of symbolic sharing of kola nuts and palm wine are just very okay. I'm so disappointed in people who compare African religion with things like cars and dresses from the white man's land. Elvis is writing from Bamenda. This one says, please, when can it be appropriate to call? We don't take calls during this program, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu. If white wedding is not a church thing, if it's a white man thing, then why do they refuse people who have a child or are living together before getting married? Why do they refuse that the woman should not cover her face or do the white wedding? Carol is writing from Ewane. We need to do some education on this white wedding stuff, the importance, the veil, and all of that. Yes. Is it really? Yes. Why do people put on the white?
Next week.
Yes, because from the cultural perspective. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Is Gracious writing from Boya. Your topics are very interesting. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Happy New Year. There is no wrong in copying the right thing, and we have to know the stages of wedding are also for notification. You notify the villagers, the state in the council, then the church for the masses and for benediction. Elvis is writing from Bonaberry. Elvis, what are you copying? Who are you copying from? Because the persons you are copying from, the whites, they don't go through these the 3 stages. So you say it is good to copy what is right. Who are you copying from? Because the whites don't do what you are saying. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and Happy New Year to all my chosen Anglophone apostles. Even though others always try to discriminate them through their text. More grace to you all. Mike from Yaoundé, long time, pa. Okay, good evening to you, Michelson, writing from Yaoundé. Yes, it's been long. You've not written. We are looking at, you are the one to talk now? Yes. We're looking at the place of the white wedding in Africa. It is dominating our African context. How do we turn the tide?
Most people, when they were doing the white wedding, they never understood that the white wedding was the white man's traditional wedding. A white man does white wedding and civil wedding. That's the two. At the level of legality, and at the white wedding, they have the family, friends, and all of that. And if we start like this program, this already, this is also a sensitization. This is enlightenment, because some people had never seen it like that. Some people had never realized that our traditional wedding and our white wedding, that traditional white wedding they were doubling. They were actually doing something again and again, and that's because the typical black man does not believe that his thing is good enough. You see, we always believe that it is. I think we should also, as we're adopting culture, everything, we should see to it that, look at how Nigerians, they have sold their culture out. They are proud of what they do, and they have sold their Indians. In fact, when people love their Indian weddings, their Chinese weddings, there are people who, when people love them, their thing, they can easily sell it out.
So it's only Africans who do not have African wedding.
Yes, literally.
We are lost somewhere.
Yes. So I think this kind of topics is already enlightening the masses. If you get to understand this, and the tide is changing with these young people who are coming now. The other day I saw that a lot of young people are already doing gowns now that are not white. Many young people now are not even doing white gowns. They are doing now gowns with our African fabric. I saw of recent, there are a lot of weddings now coming up that you discover that it's a lot of African fabrics at the level of the brand project. Even our pre-wedding shoots, it starts from there. Even our shoots, like we talk about that picture, just look at some of those kind of things where people come with the African. If we start projecting things like this, I think we will change the tide, and people will start valuing. And then we can always be blessed. I think they also talk about this church wedding, because sometimes people get confused, because most of the church people also are hardly involved maybe in the traditional, and then they're waiting for the white. I think this is another thing that we're going to touch, because
Apostle Ambe.
Yes, the church people.
Let's take a scenario where you organize the traditional so beautifully that the bride has the girls with her, and the guy organized, almost everything is organized, and you are invited to bless it. Would you not do that?
That's what I've been doing. And that's what I will do today, I will do tomorrow, I will do next week. Let me talk about valorizing the culture of people. Most of the things we buy in Africa are culture sold from outside. We have subjected our culture to be witchcraft. They told us that we have to bind our culture. The dresses we wear that come from China, they are Chinese culture. Because culture has to do with regalia, it has to do with food, it has to do with language, it has to do with some manifestations, dances and other things put together. Do you know that we dance dances from India? We dance Chinese and American dance. There are Cameroonians who are putting on trouser and making yo-yo. That's an American culture. Nigerians have taken movies to sell their culture all over the world. Yeah. They have sold their traditional meals, they have sold their music, they have sold their dancing styles, they have sold their regalia. Do you know the price of beads in Europe? Do you know the price of the Nigerian traditional regalia in Europe and America? Very expensive. If people don't package their culture and sell, culture is a means of generating national income. And most countries have sold their culture, which we are buying here excitedly. We are buying shooting stars during Christmas season. Is it an African culture? It's a European culture. There are attires we are putting on here in Africa. They are not African culture. They are European attires, and those attires are cultures from different places. I have seen people put on the Pakistani suit that has, and then tie the scarf. That is the cultural attire of the Pakistani and the Indians. They have valorized that culture to the extent where it is now generating income. It's the same way if we start packaging and valorizing our own culture, it will not only sell the African image, but also be a means of generating income. Wedding gowns, you and I know, and suits are cultural attires from Europe. We wear them yet. Do you know how much money suits produce and wedding gowns to European economy, American economy per year? That's a culture that has been valorized and sold into the world. We bought those culture. Do you know that before this Togo, which we carry out, now that is generating income in Cameroon, before you could go international, they can go to America and see a magazine, a shop that has these things they are being sold there. That will be a means of generating income. What do we export out of the country? They bring phones here, they bring cars here. Can't we sell even wooden plates? Togo? Can't we sell even the things we produce here? In our traditional way, we are going to sing our own songs. All Africans know how to dance to pack. Snoop Doggy Dogg, Jay-Z. Children are 5 years old and they are making yeah. In Africa, they don't know Dinkele, Nankulu, na. We don't sell our own. That's my worry here.
Okay, let me take some messages. Good evening, everyone. Apostle Ambe, these days traditional weddings are becoming more expensive. In some traditional weddings, they use cakes, bridesmaids, etc. Yes, but why not just do it and then forget about the white? Tagen Donatien says, good evening, Mr. Leo. It is Tagen Donatien from Bomen that traditional marriage is the best wedding. Okay, some other person says to you. Sumbele Kelvin from Consamba says, good evening, Mr. Leo. What annoys me in wedding is that during traditional wedding, people pay for prices, but during white wedding, they pay items as if it is hospital bills that we cannot bet. Let us upgrade our traditional wedding, Sumbele Kelvin. Yes, because when they say give 6 crates, you start arguing. But you buy 100 crates for the white wedding.
Yes, that's what I said. The church said 250.
Please, when people give their opinions during live programs, please, it's okay. Thank you, Kelvin, for correcting the guys in the forum there arguing. Hello, Mr. Liu. I think God, a man like Professor is taking my language now. Tell him the only way to do that is slowing down foreign inflows and promote local more. This is CY International. Good evening to you, CY International. Probably watching us from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. I say I salute you for your fight. Keep it up. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. Happy New Year. Velma writing from Yoke. Good evening to you. Velma, good evening, Mr. Liu. And the panel members, yes, couples should move back to live with their parents. In times of crisis, anything that goes up must come down. Okay, Divine is writing from Tombe. The messages are so many. Let's get the last reaction from me. Sister Sanji Yvette from Bomenda, but CY International, I'm still waiting for you and your team.
Became popular during the 1940s when Queen Victoria was getting married. That was her wedding. That's when this white wedding stuff really became popular. Now we have adopted it. We are trying to make it look like the white man. Sometimes we are even going as far as, like I said, in the Western culture, the people that did weddings with white were people from very high class, rich, noble people, and they were doing it to, to showcase their riches, their wealth. Very, very flamboyant weddings. They have missed their direction. When I say this, I mean most of them, they don't even make a year in marriage. I'm talking about cases that I know. People that make big weddings that the town was alarming. Woo! They didn't make 1 year, 2 years in marriage. So you can see that they had misplaced priorities. Their main focus was the wedding. After the wedding now, they now came to reality. Wedding is a day, marriage is a lifetime. After the wedding, you now come to the reality. Like I told some couples, wedding is like intro. When you're writing an essay in class, we have intro, then we have the main body. Marriage is the main body. So after the intro, you will now be faced with the real stuff. And if your priorities were the wedding, after the wedding you have nothing else to do. Before you know it, you start complaining left and right. So I want to say that successful marriages is not, like, wed wedding is not a determinant factor of a successful marriage. Those that have been there with flamboyant weddings.
Okay, we end the program this evening with that submission from Mrs. Sanji Yvette from Ambe. We want to say thank you to you, Apostle
Salio, and thank you for all those who have been listening to us. We are always available to give our counsel and to give you advice on marriage and relationship. Please always follow us on Tuesdays, 7 p.m.
Thank you to Apostle Ambe and Nsah for coming.
Yeah, Mr. Lee, it's always a joy. We started 2022 and I think it's going to be a very great year.
Apostle Lefor, thank you too for coming.
Thank you. It's an honor. I'm so glad to be here, and I just also want to submit that on Monday, the 10th of January, is going to be my birthday. Some people have actually already contacted. They were asking if they could celebrate. So I'm there. I would love to counsel you. I would love to pray with you. I would love to be with you. 675528266. Some people have been asking for the number. 675528266. You can contact me if you want to celebrate with me on my birthday. Thank you.
I will join you in that celebration. I want to thank all of you who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Thank you to you, Eli, for producing the program, and you, Tabit and Brian, for supervising. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.